Well, we're joined now by Brooke Burgess here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Chilly, but great. How are
Yeah.
you, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing great today as well. It's very cold here, but it's just that time of year and we have to accept it somehow.
Do we? Do we really?
Yeah. Now, you've got a new, I suppose it's an album, really.
A double,
Yeah.
yeah.
Called DADBOD. So, how would you describe the overall sound of the album, really?
Well, a few people have taken a dip and been like, "Whoa, this is
Yeah.
multi-genre craziness," and really, it's the multi-genre thing, the approach of everything from like rock to hip hop to pop to folk to what have you, was to help kind of tell a story. So it's a 20 song and 20 video adventure that tells the story of a guy who had been like a lone wolf suddenly becoming a dad and growing the f up and falling completely head over heels in love with this little bundle of joy and mapping out all the feelings from like the nervousness and the excitement to the fear to the rejection to the embracing of it and to the celebration of it all through.
Yeah, and it's interesting because dad bod is a word that means the body shape of a father, I think, is the
Pretty much.
definition.
It's like letting go of old ideas of who you are and embracing kind of the
Yeah.
new. And I guess it just seemed like a thing. I still fight to keep some semblance of shape, but really in so many ways I've changed because of him. And Dad Bod just seemed like the perfect encapsulation of that.
Yeah. And because it has so many different genres in it, do you find that a lot of people maybe only like one or two songs and it's rare for people to like every genre on the.
I think it all depends on the approach. I think that
Yeah.
younger listeners definitely zero in on a couple of songs and dodge the rest, but they're also part of the Spotify generation.
Yeah.
And at the same time, older listeners, especially from different countries that are into deep listening, really kind of appreciate the album journey. And that's what I was going for. Hey, I'm an old guy. I'm, pushing into my 50s. And I was like, the albums that really stuck with me were ones where I would lie down, put the headphones on,
Yeah.
and kind of surrender to the journey of an hour plus of music.
Yeah, and that whole idea of an album journey is so interesting because do you do it in terms of the story changes along the way, or does the style of the music gradually change as well, or maybe you do both?
It's both. It really is. There were like specific choices made melodically and harmonically to transition, but it's also about energy and story. And it's like I'm a storyteller. If you looked into my background, I've been, writing and producing and directing stuff for years in a multimedia career. And I've always, an album was a bucket list thing. I decided to go big like I usually do with my personal projects. And I'm like, how can I map out like a multi-act structure that kind of leads people in a playful and gentle way and then gets a little bit darker and a little bit heavier and then really kind of introspective and maybe a little bit of despair or concern and then pulling out of it and kind of having a triumph transformed in the end.
Yeah, definitely. So how long did this whole album take you to come up with and record?
Well, the first song was actually based on a book that I wrote back in 2014, and it was the rock bluesy number "Shadowland" was based on kind of the mythological poem in the book, and I was performing that live back in Canada and also in Southeast Asia when I was living there on a little island that I made the album on. And then when my son was born, I celebrated his first birthday. I thought, well, what can I give him aside from stuff? He's just one, but he did show an affinity for music, and I'm like, well, I want to give him this thing to remember this feeling. Because music is just this transfer of emotions in such a raw and beautiful way. And so I wrote Little Guy for him then. And then I planned, okay, from now on through until he tells me to stop, I'm going to write songs for his birthday.
Yeah.
And then on his second birthday in 2019, when I wrote Hey Ray, because I had to leave to North America for like 2 months and I knew that he wouldn't understand. And I wanted to write a song that told him I was still thinking of him. And he was in love with Hey Jude from the Beatles then. And I wanted to do a little bit of a East Coast Canadian spin on that, this kind of anthemic love riff for him and celebratory thing. And I did that, finished it off with my cousin's help in Berlin. And I'm like, more is coming. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to satisfy this itch. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
And when the pandemic hit, I had all of this time and I'm trapped on a little island in southern Thailand. And all my musician friends aren't touring and aren't going out and aren't producing anything in studios, but I could reach them with technology. And I thought, hey, this could be the perfect opportunity. I can, shoot all the videos on my island and I even knew a little camera camera crew who was able to cross provincial lines to help out with a couple of them as well.
Yeah.
But more importantly, the tech is there to self-produce and then, send stuff off to mastering and work with other producers to get the sound that you want. You can do anything now. And I was really, I've produced music and I've produced audio before, but not to this degree. And it was a learning process for me, but the tools are out there, the people are out there, the collaborative space is out there. And I was like, why not? This is a dream come true. Let's just give it a try. What's the worst that can happen? I make a album and only my kid loves it. Maybe. It turned out to be otherwise.
Yeah. And being on an island in lockdown, is that kind of idyllic? Because it sounds like it.
In some ways, yes. In others, the first month or so when it's not just quarantine, but also curfew. So everyone has to be in their bungalow in their house by 9:30 p.m. and can't come out till 5 a.m. And everyone's in masks and you hadn't had that before. And there was there was a concern and boats were canceled and supplies were only coming once a week versus daily. And so the local stores were cleaned out of stuff pretty quickly. And that's when you get nervous and go, hey, I'm a stranger in a strange land, but where am I going to go? Because everyone's locking down around the world. But within a few weeks, things relaxed a bit, and living in an island in the south that was, inherently its history was nomadic and had nomadic fishermen. Eventually you're just, everyone's growing food and everyone's catching fish. And then the supply boats return and then provincial restrictions ease a bit and you can travel a little bit around and not feel so trapped. And so it was idyllic. It's like, wow, all of my friends are going through, emotional turmoil and loneliness and feeling claustrophobic. And here I am complaining and feeling a bit lonely, but at the same time, I'm with my favorite person in the world and there's a beach right there and there's good food everywhere and I'm healthy and there's a gym I can stay fit at and I can work on my computer in my spare time and make music for my son. So I really couldn't complain.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of that thing where a lot of people had everything they needed right in front of them, but they still felt trapped. And I guess it's that choice.
Yes.
Even if they wanted to, they can't go somewhere.
I couldn't, because one of the reasons I chose that island was even though it was removed and kind of sleepy and a throwback maybe 30 years to a simpler way of life, it was nice to be able to hop in a boat 40 minutes and a taxi and then get to an international airport and fly anywhere easily. And this was now stopped. And it's like, I can't leave this country. I can't go anywhere. It's harder for me to secure contracts for writing for video games or whatever. I'm living on savings and a little bit of donations from the Canadian government. I'm starting to get concerned. How can I keep my mind from going idle and falling into a worry spiral? Okay, I'll get creative. That's always been the way to deal with negative emotions for me.
Yeah, definitely. So what kind of music do you listen to yourself? Because I take it it's quite eclectic based on this album.
It is. And the thing is, I was saying this in another interview last week, that I was I was totally into, from a very young age, I was into literature and comic books and movies and TV. I was late to the party on music, and I didn't realize why until I hit my 20s. But it felt like the stuff that was available when I grew up in the 80s, the that was on North American radio just didn't resonate with me. And I felt like the generation before of the cool kids listening to 70s rock, I felt like I didn't deserve it for some reason. Like it wasn't part of my life, even though I loved the sound of Zeppelin and Floyd and all those things. And it wasn't really until grunge hit in the 90s where I went, okay, hey, I can afford the fashion. It's just flannel and jeans. And I love the driving rock of it, and I love the poetry and Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and what have you. And then it expands to Radiohead, and then it expands to some other genres and more experimental stuff. And then I'm exposed to creative friends, to things I had missed when I was younger that were cool in the Brit wave of the 80s, and older stuff in the 70s, and then classics back in the 50s and 40s, the roots of blues. And my cousin is a well-respected jazz musician who lives in Berlin, and just being exposed to all of these things and going, oh, I get it. I wasn't emotionally mature enough to really receive music in the same way I received film and TV. And then I surrendered to it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is one of the purest forms of expression and communication there is. And one day I'm gonna make some.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of musicians as well, was there anyone in particular that you enjoyed listening to and still do?
Well, again with Radiohead, I'm definitely a big fan. It's been wonderful seeing them do the re-release of Kid Mayday and Amnesiac. That was a big deal. OK Computer, a big deal for me. I was a huge fan, a little bit of a deeper cut, but into your neck of the woods. I was a huge fan of Mark Hollis from Talk Talk and what Talk Talk did when he passed away 2 years ago. I saw the kind of outpouring of love from serious musicians who said how influential he was, and I loved their sound very, very much. Everything from, of course, the Beatles are the best in the world. Like, you understand, what makes pop sound work, and there's Beatles, and then, Coldplay riffs on that, and U2 riffs a bit on that, and what have you. Then you understand, okay, what makes prog work, and I realize why I kind of liked Rush, or I kind of liked the Genesis back in the day. What makes classical work, and why. Like, I like to deconstruct stuff, and then what do I still listen to now? Yeah, all of it. Anything that moves me. It's even why, I might not be affiliated with the community. I might be appropriating a bit when it comes to hip hop stuff, but I know that I loved De La Soul and Wu-Tang Clan and, old school Beastie Boys when they were getting experimental, and, Third Base and all this other stuff that was happening way back when. And then then you get to post rock, and I was a huge fan in Canada of Godspeed You Black Emperor, which led to Explosions in the Sky of the Friday Night Lights soundtrack. And that's why I had to do a nod to that one on the album. And then just like fun pop punk, same thing. I just, I listen to what emotionally moves me or reflects my mood at the time.
Yeah, definitely. And after this album, have you got anything else on the way?
Yeah, I'm kind of scratching away at an EP right now, almost like a denouement, a follow-up, a little bit of a coda to this that's a bit more, a little more mature, a little darker, a little more personal. It's still a bit of a mix of genres, but it tells like a side story that's less about him and just my feelings for my son, and kind of like puts a cap on how it changed me. And so that's going to be something that I think comes out probably like fall of next year. I've also had a couple of other multimedia projects brewing for a while, so hopefully we'll have something to announce next summer as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in the meantime, where can we check out all your music if we'd like to hear it?
You can go and check out the entire project, which I like to say is 20 songs and 20 videos, all for him. And I'm releasing like one video every 3 weeks over this year of his life. The album came out on his 4th birthday, and all the videos will be released until his 5th birthday next July. And you can go to dadbodthealbum.com to see photos and videos and descriptions of all the songs and background in the project, listen to the music, and of course there's links there to Bandcamp, and you can find the Dadbod the Album Brooke Burgess on Spotify, Bandcamp, Apple, you name it. Pockets of fans around the world, growing every day, and really interested to see how this thing unfolds.
Great. Well, thanks very much for coming on the show today. It's been great to talk to you.
My pleasure, and thank you.